No, there was not great knowledge or hidden secrets, but the corpse of an elderly Altaïr, who had locked himself and his apple of Eden away, selfless until the end. Okay, if you've played Assassin's Creed Revelations, you know exactly how heavy that moment is. I mean, Ezio Auditore spends a lifetime searching, finally opens that secret vault in Masyaf, and what does he find? Just the skeletal remains of his legendary predecessor. It's honestly this brilliant, totally heartbreaking conclusion to one of the most iconic character arcs in modern storytelling. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to unpack exactly how that man ended up in that chair.
So today we're diving into the life, fall, and struggle of Altaïr Ibn-La'Ahad. Let's get right into it.
To really wrap our heads around who Altaïr was, we need a quick look at his timeline. He was born in 1165 in Masyaf, Syria, and his life ends up spanning nearly a century during the Middle Ages. By 1189, at the insanely young age of 25, he hits the rank of Master Assassin. But check out what happens right after that. Literally just 2 years later, in 1191, he loses the whole shebang, gets demoted straight back to a novice. He spends the rest of his very long life rebuilding and reforming the Brotherhood until he passes away at age 92. But we really need to zoom in on that catastrophic drop in 1191.
Section 1. The Arrogant Fall, Solomon's Temple and the Broken Creed. What's really fascinating here is Altaïr's mindset at the time. Back in 1189, he saved his mentor, Mualim, from this huge Templar attack, which is what actually earned him that Master Assassin rank. He was a prodigy, right? The youngest to ever get the title. But, as you might guess, that kind of early success bred this deep, blinding arrogance. He got impulsive. He basically thought he was untouchable and completely above the rules of the Brotherhood. And that massive ego, that's exactly what set the stage for tragedy.
Because that arrogance came with a horrific cost. When he was sent to Solomon's Temple to grab a powerful artifact, Altaïr didn't just fail the mission, he managed to break all 3 tenets of the Assassin's Creed in one go. First off, he murdered an innocent elderly man just for being in the way. Second, he totally ignored the frantic warnings from his brother-in-arms, Malik, and broke cover just to arrogantly confront the Templar Grand Master, Robert de Sable, face-to-face. The result? He gets tossed out of the room, entirely compromising the mission. And, because of his ego, young Qadar al-Saif was killed and Malik suffered a brutal injury that cost him his arm.
The fallout back at Masyaf was just incredibly brutal. He's chewed out in front of the entire Brotherhood, and then Mualim actually stabs him in the stomach, sending him into what they call the sleep of the dead. When he wakes up, everything he worked for is gone. He's stripped of his rank, his weapons, his pride. He's quite literally a novice all over again.
Section 2. Path to Redemption. The Hunt for the Nine.
So Altaïr couldn't just say, hey, my bad, right? He had to prove he was actually sorry. Step 1, root out a traitor named Masoon, right in their own backyard of Masyaf. Step 2, Mualim tasks him with hunting down 9 high-ranking Templars scattered all across the Holy Land. But what Altaïr didn't know at the time was that this relentless quest would ultimately lead him to Step 3, confronting the absolute darkest betrayal of all from his own mentor.
Now, as Altaïr is tracking these targets down, this massive psychological shift happens. Going into it, he assumed he was just taking out simple comic book evil men. You know, greedy warlords, corrupt merchants, but the reality totally shook him. Take Garnier de Naplouse, a guy running a hospital in Acre. Altaïr thought the man was a mad butcher, but with his dying breath, Garnier reveals he genuinely believed he was healing shattered minds. Or Tallah the slaver in Jerusalem, who completely insisted he wasn't selling people, but rather saving outcasts that society threw away. Altaïr's whole black and white worldview was just fracturing right in front of him.
His very first target, this black market arms dealer named Tamir, actually captured this perfectly as he died. Tamir cursed Altaïr, warning him that he was just one tiny piece of a massive puzzle, working for a cause way higher than mere profit. So with every single assassination, Altaïr isn't just taking a life anymore. He's slowly piecing together this giant, sinister plot that goes far, far beyond anything he'd initially imagined.
Section 3. The Assassin Reformer, Forging a New Brotherhood. Through this incredibly grueling quest, Altaïr completely sheds that arrogant, rule-breaking kid he used to be. And in his place emerges a truly selfless mentor and a visionary reformer. He didn't just grind to get his old rank back. He fundamentally evolved the entire ideology of the Assassin Brotherhood from the ground up. I mean, just look at his legacy as mentor. It's staggering. First, he cleansed the order by taking out the treacherous Mualim, who had let the Apple of Eden completely corrupt him. Then, taking over as mentor, Altaïr realized that hiding in these massive, obvious fortresses was a huge liability. So he takes the assassins underground. He establishes guilds all across the old world to live secretly among the people. He writes the fabled Codex to guide future generations, and he even traveled to halt the march of Genghis Khan. He is, without a doubt, the defining pillar of the entire Brotherhood.
Okay, we're gonna totally shift gears for a second, because over at the State Islamic University Sunan Kalijaga in Yogyakarta, Indonesia, a researcher named Sebastian Vieri Haryono published a really fascinating academic project that deconstructs this exact video game.
Section 4. A Marxist Class Struggle, Deconstructing the Assassin's Journey.
So this academic paper takes Karl Marx's 1848 theory of class struggle and applies it directly to the game's narrative. Now, normally we think of class struggle as a collective thing, right? The working class rising up against the ruling class. But this thesis does something brilliant. It adapts the theory to an individual level. It frames Altaïr as the oppressed class and his mentor, Mualim, as the ultimate oppressor. And the really cool part? The currency of this oppression isn't money, it's power. And even more importantly, it's information.
Let's break that down. On one side, we have Mualim. He holds the Apple of Eden, and he is flat out hoarding the absolute truth about the Templars and the Creed itself. On the flip side is Altaïr. He represents the oppressed laborer. He's kept entirely in the dark, fed these tiny little scraps of context, and totally manipulated into carrying out a string of assassinations that secretly serve Mualim's own dominance.
This quote from the research hits the nail on the head. Right after killing his first target, Altaïr actually comes back asking questions. And Mualim coldly tells him that his mistake is knowing too much. He explicitly says he's going to withhold information until he decides Altaïr needs it. Later on, Mualim even justifies this to Altaïr, basically saying that leaders will drug or manipulate weaker people just to get unquestioning loyalty. It is literal textbook systemic oppression, completely disguised as mentorship.
The thesis actually leans on Georgi Lucas's 1923 theory of class consciousness to map out Altaïr's growing distrust. Basically, as Altaïr questions his targets and realizes he's being played, he achieves class consciousness. And what's awesome is the paper connects this 12th century struggle right back to Desmond Miles in the modern day, who is facing his own oppression from Abstergo Industries. The paper argues that this deep, layered thematic conflict is exactly what elevates the franchise into profound historical recreation science fiction.
The researcher actually used this amazing quote from Altaïr as the motto for the whole thesis: "There is no greater glory than fighting to find the truth." When you look at it through the lens of Marxist class struggle, Altaïr isn't just a guy running around with a hidden blade. He's a man fighting to break the chains of intellectual oppression. He's fighting to reclaim the truth that a corrupt master stole from him and from the world.
Which finally brings us full circle right back to that beautiful, tragic image we started with. Altaïr sitting alone in a vault, passing away at 92. Through this academic lens, his lonely death wasn't just some sad ending. It was his ultimate victory in the class struggle. By locking himself and the Apple of Eden away, he made the ultimate sacrifice to ensure no ruling oppressor could ever use it to strip humanity of free will again.
So I want to leave you with this thought as we wrap up today's explainer. When we look at a story as incredibly rich as Altaïr's, one that can effortlessly bridge a 12th century assassin's redemption arc with 19th century Marxist theory, we really have to ask ourselves, are video games simply entertainment, or are they profound historical and social commentaries just waiting to be unpacked? Next time you pick up a controller, take a closer look at the struggle on the screen. You might just find a whole new world of meaning.